This is the Louie T Network.
Louie T, welcome to the program. You are in the NFL Power Grid. And week 6 had a lot of compelling matchups, a lot of teams getting it done. I dubbed week 6 Statement Sunday in the National Football League. A lot of profound statements made, and so there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position on the Power Grid. Let's not delay. Let's get straight to the Power Grid. Right away. And so, of course, we start at the bottom, and we're ranking these teams from 32 all the way to number 1. And so we start at the bottom of the list, and we have a new worst team in the league this week. That's right, the Jacksonville Jaguars bring up the rear of the league at 32. With their loss against the Titans in Tennessee, they had opportunities to win that football game, including the game-winning field goal being blocked as time expired in that football game. They're now the 32nd team in the league. They're looking to get off the schneid this week at home versus the red-hot Cleveland Browns. You go to number 31. This team was 32 last week, so they're on the rise. They are a spot better here on the Power Grid, that being the Oakland Raiders. Now, still haven't gotten off the schneid from a win perspective, and they're still a offer right now, but new head coach Tony Sparano had them playing competent football in week number 6 versus the San Diego Superchargers. That game went down to the wire in Oakland, and they only lost by 3. So that has to mean something when the quote-unquote worst team in the league almost beat the best team in the league. So they got some brownie points for that, and so they elevate their status to 31 on this list, looking to get their first win of the season at home versus the Arizona Cardinals. That would be huge for the Oakland Raiders. You go to number 30 on this list, and it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And ouch! They took a serious blow to the chin on Sunday, being blown out of their own stadium 48-17. And that kind of beating warrants them to fall 4 spots all the way to number 30 on this list. They have a bye week, so don't really see the Buccaneers having any chance of elevating their play or their level or status within the Power Grid. They're probably going to be locked in to number 30. And it could even fall if the Raiders and or the Jacksonville Jaguars are able to get it done in week number 7. You go to number 29 on this list. It's the New York Jets. And here's a team that actually elevated their status from a week ago, where they were number 30 last week. They put up a fight against the Denver Broncos, the number 3 team on this Power Grid a week ago. So, hey, when you put up a fight at home versus one of the better teams in the league, even though you don't get it done when other teams are struggling around you, you're able to elevate your status. That's what the Jets have done. They're now 29 on this list, up from last week's 30 entry here on the Power Grid. You move on to the next team on the list. It's the St. Louis Rams coming in at number 28. They had opportunities, did this St. Louis Rams football team, to get it done on Monday Night Football. And when you're up 14 at home, there's no excuses. You got to find a way to win. They did not. And so they're keeping the status quo. They're still at the same spot they were at last week, so no change here. They're still the number 28 team on the Power Grid. You go to 27, same thing, ditto for the 27th spot, which is being held currently by the Washington Redskins. Had a golden opportunity to win on the road versus a very good Arizona Cardinals football team. Weren't able to do so. Their status does not change. They're still the 27th team on this Power Grid. You move on to the next team And that's going to be the Tennessee Titans. Now, they've elevated their status a whole 3 slots with their win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they leave the realm of 1-win football teams and elevate themselves to the 2-win table. And thus, they jumped up a whole 3 slots all the way to spot number 26 here on the Power Grid. Let's see if the Titans can string together 2 consecutive wins by going on the road and beating the Washington Redskins, a team that's right below them in the Power Grid. And finally, number 25, rounding out this bottom group, is the Atlanta Falcons. They struggled at home last week, lost to the Chicago Bears 27-13. With that loss, they dropped down 2 spots now in the bottom tier of this league at 25. They need a win. They need it badly. They're trending downward. And now they got to face a very, very confident Baltimore Ravens football team in Baltimore. That's going to be a tough task for them. They're at number 25, are the Atlanta Falcons, down from 23 a week ago. So now we move on to 24 on the list. That's the Minnesota Vikings. They actually elevated themselves up 1 notch despite losing in week number 6. Some teams also lost around them, pushing them down further the list. So, hey, Vikings, even though they lost, still were able to move up a spot in the Power Grid. They're now number 24. You move on to team number 23, and it's the Miami Dolphins. Hard, tough-fought loss at home versus the Green Bay Packers. They had the Packers on the ropes. The Packers had them with the rope-a-dope style and were able to tire out the Dolphins and get them at the very end. So the Miami Dolphins aren't able to elevate their status within the Power Grid. Instead, they fall down 4 rungs. They're now 23 on this list, looking to bounce back on the road versus the Chicago Bears. Bears don't have a home win to their name this season. Maybe the Dolphins can help them add to their losing streak at home to start this season. So you move on to the 22nd team on this Power Grid, and it's the New Orleans Saints. Now, they didn't play last week. However, they still found themselves going up 2 notches on this Power Grid from 24 a week ago. Some teams around them weren't able to get it done, and so they were able to move up despite not playing a snap last week. Now, they got a tough challenge on their hands in the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Can they continue to move upward on this Power Grid by getting a huge win on the road against a good football team? We shall see. You move on to number 21 on this Power Grid, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And they're number 21. They did not move last week, and they did not play last week. So Chiefs weren't able to make enough people around them suffer to go up this list. But coming off the bye, now they've got a tough test against the number 1 team from a week ago on this list, the San Diego Chargers. If they can get that win within the division, and not to mention it's on the road, that would go a long way towards elevating their status within the Power Grid. You move on to team number 20. It's the Houston Texans. Here's the team, Thursday Night Football, division lead on the line, weren't able to get it done at home. In fact, they fell down 24-0 in that game before rallying back and making it a ball game. Weren't able to do enough, however, to get the win, falling 33-28. Now they need to try to bounce back from that loss, and they're going to be on the road on Sunday Night Football versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see, and the Steelers are struggling, so can the Houston Texans right the ship, get back on track, and elevate their status within the Power Grid with a win on the road versus Steelers? We shall see, but right now they're holding down the 20th spot on this Power Grid. You go to number 19, it's the New York Football Giants, the G-Men. And they had a time of it in Week 6, Sunday Night Football. They were destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles in a matchup that could have seen them elevate themselves to second place within the NFC East. Instead, they lose. They fall to 3-3 on the season, and they lose Victor Cruz in the process. So, tough loss on a number of levels for this Giants team. So not only did they lose, but they fell a couple of rungs. Down from 17 a week ago, all the way to 19 this week. Can they get back on track? Another huge NFC East matchup for them. This time, they're on the road at the division leaders, the Dallas Cowboys. Can they win that game? If they do, they'll definitely shoot up the board. If not, they'll continue their free fall down this board. You move on to number 18, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team, we really don't know who these guys are from week to week. We talked about the inconsistencies with this football team. Well, you saw it on full display on Sunday as they were taken apart systematically by the Cleveland Browns, and they weren't reassembled. So this team needs to pick up all the pieces, put them back together in time for Sunday Night Football, where they'll be taking on a team just like themselves who are 3-3 on the season and searching for a win to get back over 500 in the Houston Texans. Can the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to get it together in time for that matchup on Sunday night? We shall see. But right now, they dropped a whole 4 spots, all the way from 14 to 18. They're now holding the 18th spot here in the Power Grid. You move on to number 17 here on this list, and it's the Chicago Bears. Here's a team that last week were all the way in the 20s at 22, so they've got one of the biggest jumps from last week to this week at number 17, so that's a huge jump for a team that had been struggling. But that was a big win on the road against the Atlanta Falcons, a team that had not lost this season to this point at home. They took them apart, beat them up pretty good too in the process. Now, can the Chicago Bears find a way to get some consistency going and win at home, something they haven't done all season long? We'll find out if these Bears at 17 can do enough to get a win at home versus the Miami Dolphins. You move on to number 16. It's the Buffalo Bills. And here's a team had a chance to do something monumental last week in beating the Patriots and taking sole possession of first place in the AFC East. Instead, they struggled defensively. There were some bad calls in that game. However, they didn't get it done defensively. They didn't get the stops when they were necessary. And so they find themselves falling 4 spots from number 12 all the way to 16. They've got a solid opponent in the Minnesota Vikings coming to their place. They need to have that one, and they need it in the worst way. Let's see if the Bills can get a win and possibly move up the Power Grid. You move on to the next team, and it's the Cleveland Browns. Look at Cleveland. Look at Cleveland moving a full 5 slots up. This is a team on the rise. The Browns have made the largest jump of any team in the last 2 weeks. This is a Browns team that was at the bottom of this. They were almost off the grid. Now they are smack dab in the middle of this Power Grid at 15, moving up a full 5 spots from their location last week at 20 with a huge home victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so now they're looking to do even more damage. They've got a very winnable game on the road at Jacksonville. If they can take the Jacksonville Jaguars down and some teams around them aren't able to get it done, we can see this Cleveland Browns team ascend even more here in the Power Grid. You look at the next team up, it's the Detroit Lions. They're at home hosting the New Orleans Saints in week number 7. They're coming off of a nice road victory versus the Minnesota Vikings. And so that allowed them to elevate their status 2 rungs here in the Power Grid. 16 was their status last week. They're now 14. And if they can find a way to beat the Saints, who are coming off of a bye week, I suspect that this Lions team will find themselves creeping up this Power Grid just a little bit more with another victory. They're going to have to do it without the services, most likely, of Heavens to Megatron, as he's still dealing with the high ankle sprain. We'll see if he's able to go. If not, they're going to have to find a way to get it done. Their defense has been lights out. Can they continue that trend against a very good offensive football team in the New Orleans Saints? Now, you move on to number 13. Wow, look at this. It's the Carolina Panthers here at 13 on the Power Grid. And here was a team that was at 15 last week, so they're up 2 rungs. Even though they did not win, they didn't lose either. They had a tie, but it was an impressive tie because they were on the road in the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. They went into the jungle, a place where no team had won this season. In fact, the Cincinnati Bengals had only lost 1 time in the last 2 seasons in their home stadium. So to go in there, force a tie, and have opportunities to win that game, pretty impressive, if I may say so myself, by these Carolina Panthers. And so because of that effort, the Panthers find themselves at number 13 on this list. You look at number 12. Here's another team shooting up this power grid. And just a couple of weeks ago, after that debacle on Monday Night Football versus the Kansas City Chiefs, this was a team that was nowhere to be found on the grid. Now all of a sudden, they're on the radar and they're making a lot of noise. It's the New England Patriots coming in at number 12. This is a team playing with a lot of confidence. Brady is starting to look a lot better, a lot sharper. Gronk is starting to get back to his form. The defense seems to be doing some things here and there. They're still not an elite unit, but they're making enough plays to give Brady and company the football and opportunities to make things happen. Hey, if the Patriots continue to play the way they're playing, they're going to find themselves inching ever so closely into that top 10 and potentially into that elite 8 that we talk about each and every single week on this program. They've got the Jets at home on Thursday Night Football. A win there will go a long way to taking them towards the elite in this league. You go to number 11 on this list. It's the Baltimore Ravens. They destroyed utterly, physically, and mentally the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay last week. Coming off of that win, they feel good. They've got confidence. Now they're going home to take on the Atlanta Falcons, another NFC South opponent. If they can get that victory, the Ravens are sitting there waiting for someone to fall out of the top 10 so that they can make entry into the top 10. If the Cincinnati Bengals or someone else isn't careful, they could find themselves out of the top 10 and the Ravens easily could slide in. If they get a win, that could definitely be a possibility next week here on the Power Grid. So now you get to the top 10 and not quite the elite yet, but it's great to be in the top 10, and you start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Here's a team that has fallen further than anyone else on this list from a week ago. They fall a total of 6 spots. So right now, they're the biggest loser, and not in a good way. Coming from number 4 all the way to 10, that tie at home. And this was more about the teams around them making power moves than it was the Cincinnati Bengals actually doing anything fundamentally wrong. But hey, when you're at home, you haven't lost at home in a long time. They didn't lose to a bad football team, but still, to tie, and it was a way they lost. Having a chance to win the game with a chip shot field goal and missing in the waning moments of that game leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. They're at number 10 right now. They've got some cleaning up to do if they want to remain in the top 10. They've got a tough one. They're on the road at Indianapolis, a team that has won 4 consecutive games. If the Cincinnati Bengals are not careful, they'll find themselves out of the top 10 for the first time since the unveiling of the Power Grid. You move on to number 9. Here's a team on the rise in the Indianapolis Colts. After starting the season 0-2, they found a way to right the ship, and in a major way, winning 4 straight, including beating the team that was above them in the division in the Houston Texans in their building on Thursday Night Football. So now, here's a team playing with an abundance of confidence, and they're looking to really stake their claim as one of the Elite 8, and they're right on the cusp. At number 9, they're knocking on the door vigorously. If someone were to slip up in the couple of rungs above them with a win against a great opponent in the Cincinnati Bengals at home, that could do wonders for the Indianapolis Colts, elevating their status in this Power Grid. You move on to our Elite 8, and this is when it gets great right here. We're talking about the best of the best in the National Football League. And so these 8 teams right now are the best the NFL has to offer. We start with the San Francisco 49ers. They got it done on Monday Night Football. Wasn't pretty, especially early, down 14, but they're able to rally back and win comfortably 31-17 versus the St. Louis Rams. Now, at 4-2 on the season, they have a huge test coming up versus the Denver Broncos, and they need to get that one. It's in Denver, and the Broncos have not lost all season long at home. the 49ers can go into Denver, who last week was the number 3 team on this list. They can go into Denver and come out with a W. The San Francisco 49ers, I will assure you, will be in the top 5 next week when this list is unveiled. So it's a huge matchup. If they lose, they'll probably be out of the Elite 8 and out of the top 10 most likely. If they win, they're probably going to ascend into the top 5, possibly into the top 3. You move on to the number 17 in the power grid. It's the Green Bay Packers, and here's a team that, don't tell anybody, but they're quietly rising up this board. After starting off the season at 1-2, Aaron Rodgers told everybody to relax. Since then, the Packers have reeled off 3 consecutive victories, and they're playing some really good football, including 2 victories on the road, one against the Bears, one last week in exhilarating fashion versus the Miami Dolphins. Now, with all this momentum, the Green Bay Packers are going to have to play some great football because they're going home to take on a Panthers team that has played some great football, especially on the road. They've been getting it done this season on the road. So if they aren't careful here, Green Bay could slip up and be taken down by a team that went into Cincinnati last week and was able to force a tie. So Green Bay looking to continue to rise up this board. They're going to have to win at home versus the Carolina Panthers. You move on to the number 16. It's the Super Bowl defending champion Seattle Seahawks. They've fallen 4 rungs after that home defeat at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys. And it's all right. It's not time to panic in Seattle quite yet. But there are some chinks in that armor. They're going to have to clean up some things. They're going to have to give Marshawn Lynch the football some more. They're going to have to play a little bit better defense. And again, hard to say that when you're talking about one of the best in the league, but the Cowboys were able to run the football. The Cowboys were able to control the line of scrimmage on both the offensive and defensive side of the football. This Seattle Seahawks team will be fine, but they've got a lot of good football left in front of them, but they've got to play together as a team, and they've got to be more consistent on both sides of the football, especially with their play calling, giving the football to their bell cow, Marshawn Lynch. They've got one on the road within a division at St. Louis. This is a winnable game. They must get this to remain in the elite of the National Football League. They dropped a full 4 rungs from number 2 all the way down to number 6. You go to the number 5 slot in the NFL Power Grid. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. Here's a team that dismantled the New York Football Giants, a team that was red hot coming into the game, winners of 3 straight. They took them apart. And so now, here's the Eagles team sitting atop this NFC East along with the Dallas Cowboys at 5-1. And they're playing great football, and they feel good about themselves. And right now, that was the first time we saw the Eagles put together a full 4-quarter game. And the end result was a 27-0 blanking of the Giants. If they can continue to play football that way, this team will remain a fixture within the top 5 of this NFL Power Grid. They're on a bye week, so bye weeks can be a little tricky. They could easily find themselves out of the top 5 just because of some of the things that other teams around them are doing. But again, when you don't play, things can happen. They can easily elevate their stats by not playing this week, depending on what teams above them do. So you just never know. But they're at 5 as it stands right now on the NFL Power Grid. You go to number 4. It's the Arizona Cardinals. Here's a team that is up, much like the Eagles, up 1 spot from a week ago. Eagles were number 6 last week. They're number 5 now. And the Arizona Cardinals were number 5 last week. And now they're number 4. They got a win last week over the Washington Redskins, 30-20. Now they're looking to go to Oakland, another bad football team, and get a W. If they're able to do so, they'll find themselves right around where they are right now in this power grid. But again, they have to make sure they don't fall into the trap. Raiders are playing some confident football. Don't know if they're going to be able to continue that. We've only seen a small sample size, which was 1 game, but it was an impressive one, even though it was in a defeat. Can the Arizona Cardinals bypass the trap, get it done, and find a way to remain a 1-loss team on the season? We shall see. You go on to the elites of the elite, the top 3, coming in with the bronze star. The number 3 team in the NFL Power Grid is America's team. The Dallas Cowboys what an impressive win. I don't think there was a more impressive victory in week number 6 than their road win in Seattle. And they really dominated that football game. The score really doesn't do it any justice. They dominated that football game en route to a 30-23 victory. Now the question begs, are these Dallas Cowboys good enough to remain in their slot? Are they good enough to elevate themselves in this power grid? We will see, but that was a huge win. Will they have a letdown after that huge emotional victory on the road? We shall see. They're at home versus an NFC East opponent in the New York Giants. They need to take care of business at home and then see where the chips fall after that. Right now, they're the bronze team on this grid at number 3, up a full 4 rungs from last week when they came in at number 7. That's what a win against these Super Bowl champions in their building will do for you. You go to the number 2 team on this power grid. It's the Denver Broncos. Here's a team up 1 rung from a week ago when they came in at number 3. That loss by the Seahawks allowed them to move up to number 2. And so now they've got a huge test at home versus the San Francisco 49ers, another team that's in the top 10 of this power grid. So the silver team in the NFL right now, as it stands, is the Denver Broncos, but they got a huge test at home. If they can get that done, who knows what could happen? An impressive victory by them at home and a less than stellar victory by the San Diego Chargers at home could spell some trouble for the number 1 team. Who's to say? But all in all, the Denver Broncos are your silver star team in the league right now, coming in at number 2. And they've got a tough test at home in the San Francisco 49ers. They're up from a week ago, from number 3 to number 2. Let's see if they can keep it going with a win on Sunday. And finally, your number 1 team, your gold star team in the National Football League on the power grid here in the L.A.B is boom, San Diego Superchargers. That's right. For the 2nd consecutive week, the San Diego Superchargers are your number 1, your gold star team in the entire National Football League. Now, it was not pretty last week, but it was a W. It was a trap game, and they did not fall into the trap. They were able to get it done 31-28 on the road versus a divisional foe. You know how those games are. They've got another one coming up. This time it's at home, but it's a team coming off of a bye in the Kansas City Chiefs. Can the San Diego Chargers remain one of the hottest football teams since their loss in week 1? They've run off 5 consecutive victories. Can they make it number 6? Much like the Dallas Cowboys, they lost in week 1, haven't lost since. Can they continue their hot football? Can Phillip Rivers continue his MVP-like pace? Can this team continue to avoid the pitfalls and traps that the NFL sets up on a weekly basis? If they can, they'll probably maintain their spot among the top of the NFL power grid. So that's your list, 32 all the way up to number 1. And so remember, whether your team's hot or cold, up or down, best believe they are somewhere around on the NFL power grid. I'll see you next week.